I started doing open mics in end of 2014. Summer House was the first sort of spot I did in Delhi. Bangalore, my style I would say was Gant for team. That was my first 3 mics, right? It was all English first of all because I think I was impacted by the fact that the other comics I saw were also mostly English. Then as I came to Delhi, it gradually changed to Hindi.
At what point, which year was this where you're like, I want to make this shift?
Post Comicstaan. There was also a conscious decision to take a step back and not be like मैं तो Comicstaan winner हूँ, you know मेरे को सब आता है. It was कि अभी तक मेरा focus since starting comedy was मेरे को laugh चाहिए. It was just focused on मुझे validation चाहिए, have to be funny. थोड़ा validation जब मिल गया उसके बाद था कि अब मैं बोल क्या रहा हूँ, that's also important, right? I can't just make and go and do Noida jokes for 8 minutes.
Wow, that's a diss on my opening currently.
You're doing Noida jokes for 8 minutes?
ये दोस्ती बनी रहे.
You asked me कि when is it that I decided to pay more attention to writing this and that. It also stemmed from pre-Comicstaan where I was doing very well, but I realized the comics didn't like me. And now I sort of get that because my writing was shit, but I was doing well. And now I feel the same way for other comics whose writing is shit and they're doing well. The breakup wala joke, I first started writing it in 2019. And then I wrote it and kuch zyada usme bana nahi, and then I left it. And then I got dumped again in 2020. And then I picked it up again. The thing that gives me most joy and gives me most energy is when I'm creating something new. The thing with free writing and exploring a topic also is to not censor yourself. जो आ रहा है उसको निकालो. Even if it's utter trash, after 3 pages of utter trash will come a nugget of gold. Exactly. But when you're writing on the laptop, it's so easy to delete it and ये बेकार है. And then you're just stuck on कि अरे 4 शब्द लिखे हैं मैंने 1 घंटे में. With the newer material, I see a lot more older people. When I say older, मतलब ऐसा 30s टाइप के 20 to 40. मैं भी 35 का. We are old, man. The point living in it. I mean, not old, but yeah.
Breakdown of a comic on camera. Do you remember when was the first time that we met?
When I was doing photography, right? So this was I stopped in 2018. So maybe 2016 or 17, I think.
Correct.
I was covering an event which was an engagement party or something. I saw you there and I was very starstruck. Oh, Abish Matthew, then at the end, then I introduced myself to you or she introduced me to you. And then at the end of the night, I told you I live in Noida and you also live in Noida. And then you came to me and you were sloshed and you were like, oh, can you drop me? And I was like, please, of course, come. I thought I'll get to talk to you and ask you shit. And then he got in the car and he's like, if you don't mind, can I open the window? I might puke. And then he passed out. And I'm like, बैंचो chaperone बना दिया है मेरे को यहाँ पे chauffeur बना दिया है. Chaperone तो date पे होता है. Yeah, so that was the first time. That was 2017?
Yeah, I have no idea. But like around that same time, a friend of mine was getting engaged. And again, all I remember is some good Samaritan dropped me in their car in Noida. And I remember stopping the car and puking. I don't know if that's fabricated memory or या फिर ये कि मैं उल्टी मार सकता हूँ और मैं सो गया.
I remember some conversation about ulti. I don't remember if we stopped. I don't think we stopped. I think you just passed out.
I think so.
And then we reached and I woke you up. I utar.
And let's say, yeah, 5-star. I think when we met at Comicstaan again is when you had told me this. And it just felt like the world is so like, the world is round. Like you meet the same circle of people again. I couldn't have believed. Us phase mein you picked me and you dropped me near my house, man. I never got to appreciate that. And
most welcome.
Thank you very much. How did that change your comedy career? Is that where you realize कि इससे अच्छा the lifestyle मैं जी सकता हूँ?
नहीं यार, like सही है यार. मतलब I mean, yeah, I didn't really get to talk to you as well. So I have, but it was just nice to see you there and meet you. And I was starstruck because मतलब 2017 is when I was 2 years into comedy.
You were already doing stand-up then?
I started doing open mics in end of 2014. And that's when I moved to Delhi as well. So
where were you before this?
So I started in Bangalore. I was working in Bangalore, and when I quit my job this time, right when I quit or when I was serving my notice period, that's when I started, when I did my first open mic. So I did 3 open mics in Bangalore, and then I moved to Delhi.
I left Delhi 2011. I would like to say 11 or 12. I had moved to Bombay. Before that, from what I remember about Delhi, I just want to talk to you about what the scene is in general. You also, 2014, you know. 2008 or 9 के time पे there was this one place called the TLR, the living room जो Hoskas Village में होता था. No comedy, no stand-up, nothing was there. And I used to host it because मैं radio करता था तो उस credibility से I said I want to do stand-up because there was no spot to do it. But then CJ had come, Papa CJ had, I think, come back from London. Mandava, Rajneesh, Neeti, Amit, everyone, then all of us just started doing one spot. Uske baad Mandava started 3 venues, Neeti started 2 venues, Rajneesh started 2 venues, Amit started. So मतलब अपने पास 8 open mics महीने में होते थे. And it was great because there was no comedy club. It was like people are eating, so you're vying for attention. So मतलब you have to yell and get them, do a lot of crowd work. So I moved in 2011. I was so happy with the scene there. I met new friends. I could be anybody who I wanted. Nobody here knew me. But then recently, I mean like 5-6 years ago, pre-COVID, someone told me that the Delhi scene has exploded. Like lots of comedy establishments have started.
Yeah.
And Bombay didn't have that. That is comparatively much newer, where there are comedy venues that are set up. Delhi cracked this in 2000. When you entered in 2014, what were the venues that you were performing in?
So I think the first one that I came to was Potbelly, which is right here. And Mandava used to run that room. And पहले तो मैं देखने आया था, and then I contacted him. He was a friend of my brother's. He was the brother of my brother's friend. तो उसके थ्रू जुगाड़ लगा के भाई के दोस्त कुछ तो था यार.
Mandava ka bhai was friends with your bhai.
हाँ, correct. They were IIT co-mates or something of that sort. And so I came and I said, and he said, हाँ, you can come do a spot. Pot Valley mein I met Manik, and Manik used to run this place called Two Mickeys. So I still have his name saved as Manik Two Mickeys. So that I went to Two Mickeys. Se pehle he said come to Summer House, and Summer House was the first sort of spot I did in Delhi. So it was Summer House, it was Pot Belly, Two Mickeys tha. And then Manik opened a couple of other venues also. Khan Market mein ek tha, I forget the name. Zootich karke ek tha. So there were about, I mean, the scene in Delhi keeps going up and down, but at that time there were about 5 mics at least happening in the city.
In a week.
Happening every week.
Every week.
Every week. Yeah. But Summer House was I think the most premier one. And that has continued till now. Abhi band ho gaya, I think, comedy. But that's how I started. Yeah.
Do you think there's a, now after, not even Comicstaan, now as of today, performing at like venues which are not meant for comedy and performing at venues which are dedicated to comedy, are there two very different styles you feel?
They are, in the sense that, I mean, I think the biggest difference is that in comedy rooms like these, you get chuckles at the small lines as well, which can completely be missed in the bigger rooms, which in the bar rooms, जहाँ पे लोग खा रहे हैं, दारू पी रहे हैं, तो उधर, you know, the minor wordplay and this and that, that's not going to get you a laugh. So you really have to, I mean, and you also have to be sort of in their face and be loud and get their attention. Which is how I'd started as well, and I think that really impacted my style. अभी तो मैं थोड़ा calm down हो ही गया हूँ, maybe consciously, maybe because of humor. But शुरू में I was very, you know, if you see my पुराना videos, it's all over the place and loud and this and that, which is again very subconscious. But it was very organic. I never thought कि I want to do like this.
It's like, you know, outside these shops where they're showing attention, tube top man.
Oh yeah. That's kind of how.
That is what it was.
Now, even now, when people want to sort of mimic me, this is what they do with their hands. Yeah, but अब मैं नहीं करता हूँ ये, but you know, it's sort of stuck. So.
When you started in Bangalore, also your style of comedy versus, let's say, in the recent stand-up clips, versus Comicstaan versus Bangalore. Could you give me a very quick Bangalore mein aisa tha, then Comicstaan mein I found this voice. Have you seen a transition?
Bangalore mein my style, I would say, my style was Gand Fati mein, which is just, that was my first 3 mics, right? So it was all English first of all, because I think I was impacted by the fact that the other comics I saw were also mostly English. I saw Kanan and the other people. So for some reason it was, and I think it's also because when I write in English, which this is true for a lot of us because we're just not used to writing in Hindi. And उस time though there was no riffing, it was just sort of trying to write stuff. So it was all, I mean, 90% of it was English. Then as I came to Delhi, it gradually changed to Hindi. I mean, of course, because Hindi just works better.
Yeah. And your natural Zabani is also the way you speak, right? Is there a difference, like when you're on stage and when you're performing, is it similar how you're with your friends?
Kind of. मतलब maybe off stage I'm still more Hindi. On stage अभी भी थोड़ी ज़्यादा English है, and that's again due to the fact that I'm still, you know, writing a lot of the times. So that writing naturally comes out in English. And plus I've noticed that because our vocabulary is better in English than it is in Hindi, there is economy of words in English. I can just sort of, with fewer words, phrase it better. So there's a tendency, I think, to have a little bit more English than I use in, real life.
Ah,
So
shit, I should also kind of consider.
plus also, I think Hindi में अब मैं technical term नहीं पता मेरे को, पर the sentences end like मैं बार गया था, right? Now if the punch is on bar, you've already revealed it and the sentence still hasn't ended. While in English you say I went to the bar. So if the punch is at bar, there's a bigger laugh because the punch comes right at the end. So that's also something I've noticed.
Like you said, no, in joke writing, one of the things that we had learned also is that the funniest word should come at the end. And wo English mein it's easy because it's more analytical, coding language. There is no tu, main, there is only you. Your respect is removed. So that entire bandwidth of communication becomes easy for brevity of words. That I think works in English. I'm not sure if that same rule applies when you're doing it in Hindi. Because every time I've enjoyed someone's performance, is they are talking as themselves. And what tone and what emotion, like even in the Bumble bit, you get to see, or all your stand-up bit, you get to see कि बंदे की personality ही ये है. Linguistically, Sid and I were also discussing, we don't know if you're an English comic or Hindi comic. And that differentiation doesn't matter because then that is who Nishant Suri is.
I think that's very confusing for a lot of people also.
क्यों?
क्योंकि वाइब उनको थोड़ी इंग्लिश कॉमिक वाली आती है, पर फिर वो वीडियो देखते हैं कि नहीं ये तो भयंकर लोड़ा बोल रहा है वीडियो में, तो कॉर्पोरेट्स वगैरह भी थोड़े ना कंफ्यूज ही होते हैं कि वो पिच करते हैं मुझे इंग्लिश कॉमिक में. बट देन आई ऑल्सो स्वेयर एंड आई एम अ हिंदी पर्सन. आई डोंट आई एम नॉट वेरी कंफर्टेबल टॉकिंग इन इंग्लिश अलॉट. 10 मिनट का मुझे लगता है बंद करो यार, नहीं होता. सो व्हेन आई वेंट टू, that was a huge obstacle for me. I went to do spots at the Adelaide Fringe, right? So I had to do stand-up for 20 minutes straight in English. And that was a huge problem initially for me because I'm just not used to it. Without a single word of Hindi.
How was that like? What did you shift before you went on stage? What did you shift during the time you were on doing your
What did I shift?
Like sometimes I see it. Sometimes if a punchline works better for Delhi, I'll find a replacement for that in Adelaide. Or I'll find like Glasgow में ऐसा कुछ है जिससे मैं वो joke को रख पाऊँ.
I prepared my old 20-minute bit while I was in Delhi, and that was mostly a compilation of already existing bits, and then I had to find, sort of translate the punches into English, which also doesn't work very well. You have to find a new punchline. For example, एक punchline थी जैसे प्रभु की इच्छा, right? Which is a way of saying, well, the way it is. Then how do you translate it into English? One of the ways which worked there is that's the way the cookie crumbles. Which obviously worked there, but when I tried it here, everyone was like, hey, biscuit क्यों तोड़ रहा है? Right? So वो ज़्यादा struggle थी because one-to-one translation doesn't really work.
Fair.
It's not.
Even reference replacement doesn't work, no?
Doesn't work. You have to find another way of saying the same thing or saying the same emotion, but this direct translation doesn't really work in jokes.
And you wrote it before you went out. Sometimes on stage when you're saying, instead of saying that's how the cookie crumbles, you're like, it's all up to God, who knows? Like that emotion is funnier than that's the way the
Correct.
That's the way the cookie crumbles is the same as saying that Bhagwan bharosa hai bhai, jaisa bhi hai.
That's the way the cookie crumbles. Again, it didn't come naturally to me because we don't say shit like that.
Correct.
I forget what I used instead, but I found something that worked much better.
I think next time you should go, you should be a prop comic and say, well,
I'll leave that for you, Abish.
Thank you. Mera punch in camera. Did you get the cookie crumbling? I crumbled the cookie. Never mind. You took a break, or okay? You explain how life has been post C3.
I mean, I didn't really take a break post Comicstaan. I moved to Bombay with Dua. Both of us sort of moved together.
How long were you there for?
From basically a year and a half, I think. So 2018 November we shifted, and 2020 March when COVID happened, I came back.
Okay.
So during that time, I was basically sort of concentrating on getting my solo ready and writing new materials, because half of the stuff I had pre-Comicstaan, I put it out in Comicstaan. The other half I realized was crap. I mean, I have to write newer stuff because obviously the jokes you write in the first 3-4 years aren't that great. So most of the time was spent in that. And then doing shows, because obviously पहली बार काम आने लगा था, so there was traveling for that. 2020 COVID happened, then I came back. Then is where I kind of took a break, in the sense that obviously everyone took a break from live shows and work, but people started compensating by doing stuff online and creating properties on Instagram or YouTube or whatever. I didn't do any of that. I sort of took some time to travel a bit, but not too long. मतलब एक दो महीने I went to Auroville, एक दो महीने I went to Dharamkot. So it's basically that. But even while I was in Delhi, I was just trying to chill, sort out my life, sort out mental health and all of that. So I was focusing on that. So that was my break.
Whatever you are today is a reflection of what you spent the last 5 years doing. Your stand-up, especially newer stuff, it's high concept premises that you want to decode, that you're spending time thinking on these things.
I mean, I just did what I wanted to do.
Okay.
So I just sort of उससे ज़्यादा करने की मेरे में एनर्जी भी नहीं थी. I couldn't have done anything else. And I mean, especially also post Comicstaan, I realized that, you know, the sort of material I was doing and writing, I wanted to do something different. That's when I started talking about कि अच्छा, let me try. I remember एक कामरा यहाँ शो करने आया था. This was pre-Comicstaan. And उसके बाद I had also done a spot, or maybe it was, you know, those canvas lineups. And we were going back and I was asking for advice. And he's like, we were having a conversation and he's like, देख तू अभी किस बारे में मेरे से बात कर रहा है और तू स्टेज पे क्या कर रहा है? The things you're honestly talking about and, you know, that you're genuinely curious about or interested in, you're not doing that on stage. So that always sort of, you know, got stuck in my head. And then I decided कि हाँ, I also want to, I started thinking about what sort of a person am I? I'm an emotional, sort of a sensitive sort of a person. And I thought, how can I bring that into my comedy? Which is where I'd written a bit on depression, which I put out on Amazon. Then this whole breakup wala thing. So it came intentionally that I was like, okay, let me try and talk about things that, you know, I'm dealing with right now. And if I can bring that honesty in it, does it work better? So उस वजह से भी it took me more time to write it because, you know, obviously you're trying to change your thought process. You're trying to go into a new genre. So वो difficult, it's more of an exploratory phase and you're sort of kind of starting from scratch. तो वो था.
But that's a conscious decision.
It's a conscious decision. Yeah.
At what point, which year was this where you're like, I want to make this shift?
Post Comicstaan. 2019, 20, when I was writing.
Comics that didn't happen, or uske saath, if a lot of people also didn't realize the name Nishant Suri, do you think you would have gotten to that point at the same time, or?
It was because I thought, you know, and there was also a conscious decision to take a step back and not be like, मैं तो Comicstaan winner हूँ, you know, मेरे को सब आता है. It was कि अभी तक मेरा focus since starting comedy was मेरे को laugh चाहिए, बस laugh चाहिए. मैं stand up देखता नहीं था, मुझे कुछ नहीं पता था. It was just focused on मुझे validation चाहिए, have to be funny. थोड़ा validation जब मिल गया उसके बाद था कि अब मैं बोल क्या रहा हूँ, that's also important, right? I can't just make and go and do Noida jokes for 8 minutes. So
Wow, that's a diss on my opening currently.
You're doing Noida jokes for 8 minutes?
ये दोस्ती बनी रहे.
Comicstaan का audition, that was one of your friends only. I think it was Tanmay or Kanan who were judging it, and he said कि in the tapes you can see he says कि अच्छा था but 5 मिनट एक ही चीज़ पे उसने जोक सुनाया. तो वो सब भी it all struck me कि हाँ सही बात है, मतलब कि ये की premise पे मैं punches मारे जा रहा हूँ. I need to talk about more, and I sort of need to focus on what am I saying. क्योंकि laugh लेना था, validation मिलना था कि मैं funny हूँ नहीं, वो मिल गया था मेरे को. So now I sort of took a step back कि थोड़ा let me try and focus on, you know, making my writing skills better.
Honesty is important when you're on stage, premises wise. There's no conscious effort कि I want to portray myself as this. But there was a conscious effort to be honest on stage. Because
that's like honesty automatically translates to funny because even as an audience को दिखता है, if you're just making stuff up and you're not being honest, even if it doesn't translate to funny, I think it creates a connection of some sort. And you can say it with a lot more confidence if something is really authentic and you genuinely believe in it. As compared to something that you're just making up and just fluff, which they may not realize directly, but they get it. They get that emotion ki when you're being fake or when you're, you know, sort of saying something honestly. So that was, I mean, the thing is, I also don't know. I'm still figuring out. उस time मुझे लगा कि ये मैं क्या Noida jokes कर रहा हूँ, अब मेरे को serious emotion this that. अब मुझे लगता है कि बहुत हो गया रोना धोना यार, अब I want to be flippant again. So it sort of changes from time to time. And I think ज़्यादा सोचना नहीं चाहिए. You should just, whatever you're feeling at that moment, you should try and be true to it.
How long does it take for you to go from like a thought that you've had to on stage, doing it mics, till it's ready for video? Is there a process or?
It's very haphazard, man. It's just,
give me an insight on what your haphazardry is.
I mean, these days, अगर मुझे कोई thought आता है, I try and take it to the stage quickly. By quickly, I mean maybe within a week or whatever. Earlier, I used
stay with that thought, na, for the week. कि आके लिख दिया भूल गए.
पहले ये करता था मैं कि आके बस लिख दिया एंड देन मे बी 2 महीने बाद आई एम लाइक कुछ नया लिखते हैं, देन आई जस्ट गो थ्रू दोस थॉट्स एंड देन बट फिर वो उस टाइम की थॉट की जो एनर्जी है वो दोबारा नहीं रिक्रिएट होती. यू हैव टू सॉर्ट ऑफ गो विद इट व्हाइल यू नो एज सून एज यू गेट इट. सो दैट इज समथिंग आई हैव रियलाइज्ड नाउ. Because when you come up with, when you think of a new thought, the excitement of coming with something new also gives you energy, which goes stale after a while. So now I try to sort of, go with it on stage and then try and work on it every day. But this, when I say now, it's a very new thing. It's the past 2-3 months maybe. पहले तो ऐसे ही होता था कि कुछ आया लिख दिया, फिर वहीं 6 महीने बाद when I'm just like कि topic नहीं मिल रहे हैं, I go through and I'm like, this is an interesting thought. Then it becomes very difficult to sort of create more on it because you're not really excited by it anymore.
Energy of a thought आया. उसके बाद are you looking at like I have to sit with this thought in a corner or on a laptop, or you're just living life and you're obsessed by the thought, or you're trying to be obsessed by the thought?
No, I'm not obsessed by anything. I'm not. I wish I was, because I think that would make me work harder. But
Everyone has the same insecurity, okay? Which is we want to work harder. Our job is not to work hard. Our job is to...
I think, there's a difference between, we all want success, we all want the numbers, but I don't know about the other people, but I'm not working as hard as I should about it. But then I also realized that's the sort of person I am, which is why I'm, in this profession.
That's who you are. Like,
So-
the reason I like your style of comedy is because I think I have seen you with Comicstaan. There you're a competitor and you delivered on all genres of comedy. Then cut to seeing your newest bits. I'm like, this guy seems to be, I didn't know this is Nishant Suri. So I swear, like, we spent 3 months together, whatever, little bit. And I'm like, no, actually, the guy on stage doing stand-up is the most you. So, so that's a good thing. Don't work hard.
Matlab, I'm obsessed with that thought as long as I'm taking it on stage and I'm able to find something new in it.
Okay.
I wouldn't say obsessed with it. I'm excited by it as long as I'm it's the thing that gives me most joy and gives me most energy is when I'm creating something new.
Okay.
तो अगर उसमें कोई भी नया tangent मिला कुछ मिला, then then it's in my head and I'm sort of I'm working on it every day. Once I stop doing that or it becomes a little stale कि उसमें कुछ नया नहीं आ रहा है, then then I sort of try and find something new. But you were asking me कि what is my usual process. So वही है, मतलब sometimes this joke, the breakup वाला joke, as I told you on the phone, I think when I first started writing it in 2019, and then I wrote it and कुछ ज़्यादा उसमें बना नहीं, and then I left it, and then I got dumped again in 2020, and then I picked it up again, और फिर बनाया. Sorry, I first started writing it in 2017 and then I picked it up again in 2019. Then I'm working on a bit right now, which I started working on maybe last year in January. और मुझे हमेशा से पता था उसमें कुछ तो है, but वो बन नहीं पा रहा था. I did it for a month, कुछ नहीं बना. फिर मैंने 6 महीने बाद दोबारा उठाया, फिर कुछ नहीं बना. अब दोबारा मैंने उठाया and now I feel like I've got something out of it. So, as you know, it could be a long process or you could just, in a week, you could be like, this joke is done. So it sort of works like that for me.
What's the new bit that you're working on, like premise-wise?
The premise is that someone said, if you never try, you'll never know to motivate me. And that has motivated me to not try. Because I don't want to know what so it's related to self-esteem. And the fact is that as long as you don't try, you never lose. So it's that bit.
Now the anti-motivation.
So it's a little cerebral and तो इसको मेरे को, to get my thoughts out and to write it, I was really struggling with it. तो इसीलिए मैं इसको over 2 साल उठाया छोड़ा, but अब I've been able to sort of do something about it.
And you usually write these thoughts down on Evernote and you come back to it.
Yeah.
And do you keep adding new thoughts to it, या pen paper पे ले आते हो? Like how much is pen paper? How much is it this?
So pen paper was a huge part till about 2 years back. I mean, I would do all my free writing on it. If I'm exploring a new topic, I think it works better on pen and paper.
Okay.
Where you just let your mind flow in whatever direction it goes. For some reason, I stopped doing it now. But abhi I mostly do it on a laptop. I
But
write
still
stuff.
continue free flow writing.
It doesn't happen, even if you want to, it doesn't happen as naturally on a laptop for whatever reason, as it does on a pen and paper. I don't know what it is about just writing it physically, where it can just flow. I think it's because you're also writing slower, so it's giving more time to your brain to sort of whatever. Yeah. And the thing with free writing and exploring a topic also is to not censor yourself. जो आ रहा है उसको निकालो. Even if it's utter trash, after 3 pages of utter trash will come a nugget of gold.
Exactly.
But when you're writing on the laptop, it's so easy to delete it and ये बेकार है. And then you just stuck on कि अरे 4 शब्द लिखे हैं मैंने 1 घंटे में.
Somebody else, Kanan had actually told me this also. Write it down. It slows your brain down. After the third page, second page, you go into the flow of all the negative thoughts get out, and then you're getting to it.
I think the thing with comedy also is that, you know, if you're funny, I mean, when we've been naturally funny in our lives, which is why we sort of thought of taking it on stage, it's never a conscious effort कि अब मैं सोचूं कि कुछ funny बोलना है. You can't use your brain to sort of, it comes from within. You use your brain to sort of analyze it and censor it. But when you're free writing, you just जो भी आ रहा है, you just let it out, and वो जो भी आ रहा है will lead to something funny. It's the censor that, you know, when you keep shutting it down कि ये भी अच्छा नहीं, ये भी नहीं, तो तुम वो flow ही नहीं करने दे रहे हो. तुमने पहले 2-3 thought पे ही रोक दिया. वो 2-3 thought 10, 15, 20, 30 thought के बाद maybe it's at the 40th number, whatever that funny thing is. But if you keep stopping yourself at the third one कि ये अच्छा नहीं, कुछ और चाहिए. Consciously funny नहीं होते. I mean, the flow state is when you're just, you know, organic, you are there, you are present, that mind chatter is off. So yeah, I guess you can reach that when you're sometimes, very few times during COVID, that was the time I started meditating, and I was doing it for a year every day. कभी-कभार लिखते हुए, I just felt like कि, you know, I can just see my pen move and this is, no, I don't know where the fuck this is coming from. Your perspective about something you've written 2 months from now is going to be very different from right now. तो immediately delete नहीं करना चाहिए, because when you're seeing it afresh after a month, maybe you'll see something in it that you didn't see it at that point of time. You'll see an angle, even if it's not funny, you'll find an angle जो तुमने शायद उस time नहीं देखा था.
That's a great insight, dude. I'm gonna start putting. It's like everyone knows this. Everyone does it little bit, but कोई regimentedly किसी को, I mean, I don't know about किसी को, but like regimenting this as like a lifestyle, like meditation or just writing in and reviewing it.
Yeah, the jokes that I really liked came from free writing.
Free writing, no?
They always came from that.
Okay, I want to talk to you about this solo versus spots. So going to do spots has its benefits, and doing your trial shows, which is for an hour multiple times. Could you give me pros and cons according to you? Like, what do you prefer doing? Like,
I haven't done enough trial shows. I tried. Basically, मेरे से solo में नया material नहीं try होता. Because I feel
isn't that where you're supposed to do it?
I can only do it in sports. I feel very pressured when I feel like लोग, you know, पैसे देके मुझे देखने आए हैं. And I just am not comfortable trying absolutely new stuff on stage.
Not even 5 minutes in that full hour?
नहीं, because one, I can't riff on stage. I can't. मुझसे होता ही नहीं है. I physically cannot do it on stage. And I guess that's because I haven't tried it enough times. Of course, it's scary the first few times I try it, and then maybe after 20 times you become comfortable. But मैंने वो किया ही नहीं आज तक. I always write, and I need to know what I'm saying before I'm going on stage. And until I'm comfortable that a joke is 100% there, or at least 60-70% there, I don't take it to a solo. So I like doing, I do spots, you know, every week I do 3, 4 or 4, 5 spots at least. Because I feel like अगर मेरे पास खाली 5-10 मिनट है, तो मेरे को उसमें stress नहीं है मेरे को. I can just, I don't know. I feel like everyone's there, everyone knows कि ये open mic है या वो है. So I like doing it that way. I don't like testing out stuff in my solos. But that's just me. How do you, what is your sort of?
It's different because I started doing a lot of spots almost every night for the last year. Bits started becoming tighter, and I was very happy with it. Because of that, I got the confidence to do trial shows. Now, as of today, I am thinking, and I want to hear what you think, I want to start doing more 1-hour trial shows. While the lifestyle of going on spots is for my personal life. मतलब मैं office जा रहा हूँ spot के लिए. I want to do more 1-hour trial shows. A couple of comics on JoJo said that the stamina of a 1 hour, Pratish also said this recently, 10 मिनट का बिट 10 मिनट में बनाते हैं, 15 मिनट का 15 मिनट में. अगर आप 1 घंटा करोगे तभी वो 1 घंटा बनेगा. And I've never made a thematic show before. And like you went through mode, but I don't know whether it works or not, but 1 घंटा मुझे करना है. मेरे पास है material, but सब thematic नहीं है. And I do want to put it all under one umbrella. So I don't know. I'll tell you about it.
I mean, what you said right now is the way to think about it. Bits become tighter when you do spots. And that's why I'm actually doing it now. क्योंकि पहले मेरी प्रॉब्लम क्या थी और क्या है कि it's sort of easy to take a joke from 0 to 70% while you're doing, sports. But वो 70 to 100, वो organically over the next 6 months या 1 year बनेगा, because when you get a tag, you get a tag. It's very difficult to sort of sit and be like, it's perfected. वो नहीं होता. So I'd put those 70% wala bits in a solo, and then it just stayed at 70%. Because overall in a solo, if you have a tight joke, उससे पहले थोड़ा सा loose joke आया, doesn't really matter. And then unless you are very anal about it, I didn't work on it. I let it be at 70%. And then after a while, एक साल, if you're just doing that same bit, then it becomes very difficult to modify it, because that bit has an energy and a rhythm. फिर आप उसको change भी नहीं कर सकते. अब वो joke I didn't explore it to its full potential. Now I don't want to do that. I want to that's why I like doing, I want to do sports. कि मैं एक को पकड़ के उसको जितना tight कर सकता हूँ मैं करना चाहता हूँ. So then I can do 15-20 minute spots when I'm working on 3-4 bits at a time. Achha. But I don't want to start doing trial solos yet.
It's the opposite advice somebody else gave me. They said that अगर तुम्हारा, it's not the 70% analogy. और बोला तुम्हारा अगर set ही funny है, but अगर तुमको final closing नहीं मिला, like you haven't got a tag or you don't have a closing to a story, when you do it in a solo, you can still do it more confidently because उसके the wings open up. When you're doing your solo hour, if you're doing a 15-minute, you don't have a closer, doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. When you're doing an hour, the audience is laughing at the journey of the set. It doesn't have a closer yet, but that's what you build during the hour so that you see in case something else fits in and it's just the first half of the second half or something else.
True. I mean, it works that way, but that's a specific example. I feel like, I'm still in the zone where I don't know how to write a joke. I feel like I'm still we are all still learning, right? तो experimenting with that bit की एक line, एक word, इसको ऊपर करूँ, इसको नीचे करूँ, as we were talking about कि last word ये वो, तो वो जब आप solo में कर रहे हो, I don't think you're going to pay enough attention to that, where you're really trying to, bring out the full potential of a joke, where you're treating it as a writing exercise. This is again, this is how I'm thinking about it right now, because I've read some books from comics and I'm like, nah, मुझे अपनी comedic skills और tighten करनी है rather than कि घंटा अच्छा बना.
Maria Bamford had said this in a book also, which I really enjoy, is that if your job is to speak for an hour, so speak every day for an hour. बाथरूम के सामने भी जाके बस बात करो अपने आप से, non-stop. And it's such a weird and good advice because it kind of does help. What I think as of now, and could be completely, everyone has their own process. Mine out thoughts on stage when you're doing spots, then वो 70% idea goes our trial में डाल के polish करने के लिए you bring it back to spot. So that way your ecosystem of going to work every day is still there. You're still going to spot, whether you're generating a new thought or you're finding a closer to another thought. But all of this services in that one big hour. So I think it's just a good lifestyle to have. Even I don't have the crack.
You have to do both. That's true. अभी तो, because I'm not, now I start focusing on my solo. अभी तक I was just like, I need to create new bits. I want to do that. Now that I have 4 or 5 bits which are kind of there, so now I have to sort of think about कि अच्छा solo कैसे बनना है. So of course I will start doing that. I'm not going to call it trial solo because it's still good enough that it can be called a normal thing. But it's true that I still want to work on individual bits. But and the thing about talking for an hour is also very true, because I found that अभी जैसे मैं काफी time से I'm not really touring. So when you go on stage for an hour, it's not easy. After 30-40 minutes, you get tired, you're not able to hold their attention as well because you're sort of also a little tired.
Like free writing is one, talking to yourself, talking to for an hour is also these are things that I'm just trying
You talk a lot, man. You shouldn't have any problem. I think in a good way. I was, even during Comicstaan, I was envious of the fact that you have all of this energy and I don't know, you were just able to come up with stuff. Because the shoots sometimes were like 4 hours long, and for you and Sumuki had the responsibility of keeping the energy going. So I think for you it comes more naturally than...
It is true, I just want to clarify something. Hosting is about keeping the energy of the audience alive.
Yeah.
That you can vibe, radio, you can build that up. That's a skill. That's a good skill. As a stand-up comedian, talking for an hour is about trying to communicate a thought you have in your head to an audience. 2 very different skill sets. एक है audience को गर्म रखना, दूसरा है कि audience को मेरे साथ होना. So I think somewhere hosting, I'm very appreciative of the opportunities I got. I became a good host. Now I'm in a position in my life where I'm like, I want to be a good comic also.
The other thing about doing sports also is that it's not your audience. I think that is also very important, that when you're doing your own, for your own audience, they already like you, they know you. For you, that might be a little more difficult because even in a random audience, they'll know you. But either Delhi mein, now that I go to a lot of the rooms, a lot of people don't know me, right? So I think that's because it's a little harder, because the likability is not there and you have to establish it in the set. तो वो सेट की भी असली औकात पता लगती है, because they already know you, they like you, they like अरे ये आ गया, तो they're gonna laugh irrespective, or they're gonna be
Equally disappointed towards the end.
हाँ.
तो वीर said that 2 मिनट का तुमको credibility मिलता है, उसके बाद अगर हंसे नहीं है ना, then that immediately wipes back.
हाँ ये भी है. That's also true. हाँ वही है. I mean, I don't think any of us have the answers because it's not a science. It's again वही बात है कि we're all sort of figuring out what's the best way to do it. And if you do this again a year from now, I may be saying very different things from what I am saying right now. Right.
I'll come back to a year later. I'm like, जो मैंने उस दिन बात की थी, whether it worked well or not.
Right.
I want to quickly talk to you also about, hey, actually, this is perfectly what you said. Relationship with audience versus, relationship with what you just mentioned about an audience, right? Where you mentioned कि sports में तुम्हारी audience नहीं आ रही है, solos में तुम्हारी audience आ रही है. What is your relation with the audience? What do you think your audience is, or what do you know your audience is?
I think most of my audience is Comicstaan audience, but there's sort of people who get what I'm doing. मतलब who've seen my stuff. It's very difficult to define it, यार. पता नहीं इसका answer मुझे नहीं पता कि who my audience is. But they're mostly because I mean that's the sense I get when I talk to them after the show. A lot of them are, oh, we saw you in Comicstaan. I've been following you since Comicstaan. So I haven't been able to top Comicstaan. So most of them are that. And it's kind of changing in the sense that post Comicstaan, at least 2 साल, there were a lot of young people. 16 साल के बच्चे, this, that. Now I see with the newer material, I see a lot more older people. When I say older, मतलब ऐसा 30s type के 20 to 40. मैं भी 35 का. We are old, man. Point living in it. I mean, not old, but yeah.
Breakdown of a comic on camera.
We are old, ना तो इधर से जा रहे हैं. But yeah, I don't know if I can give you a better answer than that, what my audience is.
Now, are you curating yourself to the audience, or you're being yourself?
I mean, that's something
like you're holding yourself in the wind of change.
I have to do what again, वही honesty वाली बात है. You have to be true to yourself. I want to do things that I find are funny. I don't want to cater to the audience, because then how am I bringing to the table what I am and who I am? How do I make myself unique? Because that's the thing, right? If we're all unique people. But if you start catering to what the audience is, then how are you giving them, वो तुम्हें देखने क्यों आएंगे? मतलब you have to show them something that's part of you, what your unique perspective on life is. So that's my sort of thought process behind comedy. It's not been working out in terms of numbers over the past years or whatever, but that's still something I very strongly believe in, कि मुझे जो funny लगता है मुझे वही करना.
Is that a change that happened once you got validation? Or
yeah.
Or like, was it like
when I started thinking more about comedy? पहले I wasn't. पहले it was just कि भाई bomb नहीं करना है, stage पे funny होना है, whatever that takes. And I didn't have a lot of knowledge about it also. I didn't know, मतलब हाँ, मेरा मतलब पहला perspective था क्या बोलना है बाद में सोचेंगे, पहले लाफ लेनी. As that happened, as I got validation, then I started thinking more about what I'm saying. And then that perspective kind of changed.
Okay, that's a very good answer actually to the audience question, because how does one even know?
Yeah.
Sticking to the topic on online is again something that I also keep struggling and questioning all the time. Numbers kind of define a lot of ये video chala, nahi chala. Did you face that also when you were releasing your first video, second, and now are you over it, or is that still a major concern?
I mean, I would like to say I'm over it. I am much better about it, क्योंकि पिछले 2-3-4 videos नहीं चली हैं. So I mean, you do get used to it, obviously. But I mean, irrespective of who you are, if you've created something and you've put it out, you will feel bad if it doesn't work. But how much you feel bad and for how long you feel bad, that, you become much better at dealing with it. And you become more used to this idea कि this is what it is, man. मतलब या तो तुम रो लो अब कि नहीं चला, or you keep working. And every time something doesn't work, मतलब 3-4 दिन का ग्रेविंग प्रोसेस होता है, फिर चौथा बनाने के बाद आई एम लाइक चलो भाई क्या कर सकते हैं, हो नहीं हुआ आगे वर्क करो. बट ऑफ कोर्स आई मीन इट इज वी आर ऑल डूइंग इट. आई मीन इफ यू क्रिएट समथिंग इतना मन लगा के दिल लगा के इतने टाइम से तुम बनाते हो, यू वांट इट टू वर्क वेल एंड यू डू कंपेयर योरसेल्फ टू अदर पीपल, व्हिच इज द रॉन्ग वे टू डू इट. पर वी आर ह्यूमन मैन, एंड मतलब बचपन से ही हमें कंपेयर करा जा रहा है कौन फर्स्ट सेकंड आया, कौन ये आया, कौन वो आया. तो इट्स नाउ ingrained in us, but you become better at dealing with it. And
How many recordings do you take before you put something online? Because you, before you even compare, you're comparing yourself with Happy में ये recording सही आया, Habitat में ये better था, Dippo में ये सही था.
not too many. I feel like I should have, like the latest one that I put out, I feel like I should have done it again. But I was sort of just exhausted of doing that material. Bore हो गया था मैं. 2-3 बार record करा चुका था. I was like, यार भाड़ में जाए, मैं निकाल.
Which, by the way, is a constant theme in most comedians' cases. Is that we always look for like this perfect recording. So we end up recording 5, 6, 7 of those.
That's
कभी
never
नहीं
gonna
मिलता है.
happen.
Yeah.
You never get the perfect recording.
You can never get the perfect recording.
And I mean, the thing is, we also decide to put out a bit when we are done with it, right? तो फिर आपने 1-2 बार रिकॉर्ड करा लिया, and you don't record 5 times in a month. You're doing it maybe doing it over 3-4 months.
Correct.
And you're also getting bored with that material. Mentally also you're done. You are done with that material the first time you decide to record it. अब वो 5 महीने तक नहीं हुआ है, और even more exhausted by it, और फिर वो इतने अच्छे से नहीं निकलता. I record the next bit I'm going to put out. I recorded when I recorded this Bumble वाला set, and then I thought कि इतना अच्छा नहीं आया. फिर अभी मैंने 2 महीने पहले दोबारा रिकॉर्ड कराया ना, रियलाइज ये तो और घटिया है. तो 1 साल बाद तो आई वाज बिल्कुल कि निकालो इसको यार, नहीं करना. So now I'm releasing it from the
older Bumble wala video. A joke again. I don't know who said this, but it's like a fruit. A comedy set is like a fruit. There is a point where it's raw, then there is ripe, then it's stale.
I mean, it depends on what you mean by ripe. To me, a bit would be ripe when you have energy for it. When you are still, after a while, it just becomes a ratte wala thing.
Correct.
It's ripe when you are also excited by it, when you can also, the emotions that are coming out of it are coming more naturally. And our tendency is to record a bit when it's becomes stale, which I think is wrong. Which I need to change. Is to when it's doing well, when I'm excited by it, I think तभी record कर लेना चाहिए. उसमें प्रॉब्लम ये है कि if you come up with tags 3-4 months later, then obviously that recording is gone. You can't use it. पर हाँ, it's true. I mean, a bit has a life, and I don't know why it has that life. वो अपने आप just stops working. It's so annoying and it's so irritating. मेरे लिए कुछ चेंज नहीं हुआ है उस बिट में. मतलब I still think it's a very funny thing, but it'll just fucking die after 2 years, man. It stops getting that same response, and I think it has to do with your energy for it. जब वो नया होता है तो तुम्हें मजा आ रहा होता है कि भाई ये देखो मैंने क्या लिखा है. जो हम बिट्स निकालते हैं, usually it's, I mean, unless you're writing a new hour every year, it's stuff that's maybe 2 years old or 3 years old, or some of it may be 4 years old. But you're not that person anymore. You're not putting out a true version of who you are. पर क्या कर सकता हूँ?
So this is a message from a friend who really appreciates your comedy.
यो निशांत सूरी बढ़िया इंसान है यार, मुझे बहुत पसंद है. नॉट एज अ फ्रेंड, आई एम सेइंग फ्रेंड तो है ही बढ़िया. एज अ कॉमिक मुझे बहुत पसंद है, क्योंकि एक तो वो प्रेमाइस बहुत अच्छे ढूंढ के लाता है, ऐसे फालतू के किसी भी टॉपिक पे बात नहीं करता, और प्रेमाइस ढूंढ के भी लाता है तो उसमें फिर पूरा खेलता है जितना उसमें खेला जा सकता है मैक्सिमम लेवल पे. बट अलॉन्ग विद दैट जो सबसे प्यारी चीज़ है उसकी वो ये है कि वो इज अ वेरी गुड राइटर. तो वो वर्ड्स उतने ही इस्तेमाल करेगा जितने ज़रूरी होंगे उस जोक को बताने के लिए. कोई भी फालतू वर्ड्स इधर से उधर यूज़ नहीं करेगा. तो इसकी वजह से उसका जो ओवरऑल सेट है वो बहुत टाइट हो जाता है. परफॉर्म वो करता ही इतनी शिद्दत से. तो ओवरऑल आई थिंक बहुत बढ़िया है पूरी सारी चीज़ें. बस एक चीज़ है जो आप सेल्फ डाउट के लिए मुझसे बोल रहे हो, रहता है वो सेल्फ डाउट में, वो तो खैर कोई भी रह सकता है, उसमें कुछ नहीं है. बट अलॉन्ग विद दैट ही कॉन्स्टेंटली कीप्स ऑन टॉकिंग अबाउट थेरेपी एंड ऑल, तो वो कर रहा है उस पर काम. बाकी मुझे पर्सनली लगता है कि ब्रेक बहुत ज़्यादा ले लेता है बीच बीच में, बट उसका भी कहना बहुत ठीक है कि अगर ब्रेक नहीं लेंगे तो फिर तो हमने इसी को नौकरी बना दिया है. तो बात उसकी भी बिल्कुल ठीक है. तो जैसे भी है वो, जैसे भी कर रहा है, ज़्यादा इंटेलिजेंट आदमी है, मुझसे ज़्यादा समझदार है, वो कर ही लेगा जैसा भी कर रहा है. बट ओवरऑल एज अ कॉमिक आई रियली लव हिम, एंड आई जस्ट वांट हिम टू डू कि वो और ज़्यादा करे, ब्रेक कम ले, ये मैं पर्सनली चाहता हूँ. Just because as a comic I want to learn from him, as an audience I want to see him perform more and more, and as a circuit I want he should inspire other comics so that in future we have better comics. Yeah, that's all. Love you, Suri.
वेरी स्वीट। सबसे पहले तो मैं देख रहा हूँ कि कितने बजे आया है, क्योंकि अगर ये शाम रात 9-10 तक आया है तो ये सोबर हालत में है। अगर ये रात को 2-3 बजे आया है तो ये
बकायदा ईओडी भेजा
over a few
बकायदा शाम को बिफोर फर्स्ट
very very nice of him. I wish YouTube का एल्गोरिथम भी ये समझ पाए। पर नहीं, I appreciate. I don't know if I agree with a lot of it कि एकदम, I mean I'm trying to become a better writer. We a lot of it also stemmed from, you know, when you asked me कि when is it that I decided to pay more attention to writing this and that. It also stemmed from pre-Comicstaan, where I was doing very well, but I realized the comics didn't like me. You know, and now I sort of get that because my writing was shit, but I was doing well. And now I feel the same way for other comics whose writing is shit and they're doing well. So I got it then, but I didn't know that, and when I faced it, it really affected me. Ki why don't people like me? And then I started. That was, maybe that's not the right reason to do something, but that's honest. I'm being honest. कि मुझे बुरा लगा कि, you know, the other comics don't like me, and then I started thinking about why, and I realized my writing was shit or whatever. So वहाँ से भी I sort of started working on. So it feels nice to you know, see the appreciation from other comics about your writing, but yeah. Thank you, Bassi. Very kind of you to give such nice sober feedback for me. I appreciate it. तू भी अच्छा ही कर रहा है यार। दाढ़ी थोड़ी सी यहाँ से यहाँ है, बाकी तो सब सही है।
Thank you, man, Nishant Suri, for this.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. It felt like I was talking to myself.
Thank you very much.
Just it felt like I'm like,
Thank
bro,
you for
I want to
having
give you a hug because I want to give myself a hug. ऐसा type का था.
Are you gonna cry?
No. I feel.
No, thank you for. I really enjoyed this conversation, and thank you, Bassi, also for saying such nice things. Directly भी बोल दिया अगर ये तिरछा तरीका है।
But yeah, thank you for coming. I wanted to break down your Bumble bit, but you know what? We'll meet again one day, and maybe the new bit where you feel like there's a better learning. इसमें मैंने time लगाया. We'll definitely break.
And which have more views, so that, you know, audience can also relate to it. Next time तक I'll have more.
All right. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank
and actually, I don't even.
Watch Suri Safari. Oh, मेरा camera.
हाँ, तेरा कैमरा है. Talk about Suri Safari quickly.
Watch Suri Safari also is this show where I travel and I eat food and I do stand up in unique places. Like I went to Banaras and did stand up on a boat, and then I went to Manali and did stand up on a hill. And it's very nice. It's genuinely, as you know, we've sort of maybe seen I've had problems with being confident in myself, but this show is very good because other people have made it. बहुत बढ़िया है देखना।
More on self-confidence later. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you.